The Dutch city of Groningen is located in the north of the Netherlands and has a beautiful inner city, which unfortunately saw a lot of destruction during the Second World War, because here, near the end of World War II, April 1945, the Battle of Groningen took place, where Canadian forces liberated the city and fought against German troops, but also Dutch and Belgian Waffen-SS volunteers. This here is a story about a forgotten World War II battle, the Battle of Groningen. Good to have you back on the channel. If you're new, I'm Stefan, I'm a Dutch history teacher. I like to cover history on location for you. If you find it interesting, well, consider subscribing, hit the notification bell, and consider supporting me. You can do that via Patreon or via PayPal. The links are in the description. The liberation of the Netherlands was a painful process, since Operation Market Garden had failed. The part north of the main rivers remained under German occupation. Canadians battled their way through the Scheldt area in the province of Zeeland to clear it of its defenders. The west of the country was deprived of food, and the so-called hunger winter, the Dutch famine, commenced. The Allies had to make their way into Germany and re-entered the Netherlands from Germany while battling its way up north. The advancing Canadian forces were responsible for the liberation of the western and northern parts of the province of Groningen, as well as the main city with the same name, while the Polish troops focused on eastern Groningen. On the orders of General Johannes Blaskowitz, the German command in Groningen was determined to hold the city as long as possible in order to protect the evacuation of thousands of German troops from Friesland via Delfzijl. The German defenders consisted of Wehrmacht troops together with Dutch and Belgian Waffen-SS volunteers that had never fought together. The Canadians wanted to take the city quickly in order to move to Delfzijl to open the harbor for food convoys to provide food to the starving population of the western Netherlands. In addition, the Eems estuary could be closed off to prevent the still active German U-boats from using the waterway as a base. For the Canadians, the Battle of Groningen was one of the toughest city battles during the liberation. This was going to be urban warfare. From April 13th to 16th, there was heavy fighting in the city as 14,000 Canadians entered it. They took on about 7,000 Germans, a hodgepodge of paratroopers, Luftwaffe soldiers, SS men, soldiers of the Kriegsmarine, and members of the Hitler Youth. The Canadians were the first to attack the east of the city in order to prevent the Germans from retreating to Delfzijl. Dutch resistance members of the Binnenlandse Strijdkrachten, the interior forces, also took part in the liberation of the city. The battle would start on April 13th. A day before, a Dutch named Benema, who had an iron shop and also had some people in hiding, noted in his diary, "On April 12th, 1945, the Canadians stood on the southern edge of Groningen. That evening began the exodus of NSB members and other wrong Dutch people. Packed and bagged, they set out on a journey, pushing prams full of stuff and several coats on top of each other, a joyful sight. But soon after, things got serious and there was a lot of fighting. The Canadians set fire to the northern edge, driving the Germans out, but the fire continued. It also came into our street, so we had to make sure we got away." From the 13th till the 16th, the Canadians fought against the Germans in Groningen. The east of the city was the first to be attacked. However, the Germans were well prepared and had a large number of snipers on the roofs. The defenders had also put machine gun nests in basements, and a red SS men dressed as civilians harassed the attackers. The canals of the cities were used by the defenders as barriers. It was only after day 2 that the attackers managed to form a bridgehead to the inner city. Bridges were either blown up or heavily barricaded. The Canadians had to conquer each house separately, so there were many house-to-house battles in the vicinity of the bridges. The Canadian soldiers thought the houses on the Parkweg were business premises, but they turned out to be civilian homes, forcing them to be more careful to avoid civilian casualties. The Canadian troops were fighting here all day. Germans hid in houses and fired at the Canadians with incendiary bullets and grenades. Due to the shelling, many fires broke out in the city. The Grote Markt, Waagstraat, Guldenstraat and Oude Ebbingstraat, among others, went up in flames. On April 16th, the Germans surrendered. Not only had their ammunition run out, about 130 Germans had been killed. There were 43 casualties on the Canadian side and 106 civilian casualties. In the city, as many as 270 buildings were destroyed or damaged. One of the destroyed buildings was the infamous Schultenhuis, where the German SD was located. Under the leadership of the feared SD member Robert Leenhoff, hundreds of resistance fighters were imprisoned, interrogated and tortured. The Schultenhuis was therefore often referred to as the Porch of Hell. During the liberation of Groningen, the building was destroyed. After the liberation, the population was happy and the liberators were welcomed. Some had mixed feelings, as Benema wrote in his diary. Our house had not suffered any damage, so we just slept in our beds at night. But life was not ordinary in those days. In the first place, all those stories from other people about their war and their liberation and about the deaths that fell in the process. But also the spontaneous parties and dances that started here and there in the street around gramophone music. The Battle of Groningen actually was not the last battle of World War II that was fought in the Netherlands. No, that was the Battle of Delfzijl. And then there was also the Battle for Texel, which is another story for another time, which I actually talked about in one of my videos about the aftermath of World War II in the Netherlands. You can find that video right here, and if you're interested in other forgotten World War II battles, you click right here. Thank you for watching, don't forget to subscribe, en groeten uit Grun.